Scott, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Well, hello, hello. Nice to meet you, Sifu Mimi.
Oh my goodness.
Good.
No.
Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Not at all, not at all. Just Mimi's good. I want to give a shout out to our mutual friend John Fusco, who connected us so quickly. And usually this process where I'm like, oh, it'd be really great to talk to so and so. It usually takes like time, and you were just so quick to respond and just so easygoing. So I really appreciate that.
Well, John's a good friend, and we actually don't get to talk very often. He's just always in the mountains, training somewhere in the thing for like days in the rain, and doing kung fu and tracking bears or foxes and stuff like that. So, or singing.
Yes, yes, this is very
But
true.
when John calls me, I usually respond right away. Because he's usually having a moment and it's usually always a very spiritual moment for him, and a time where he's at, and those moments come not so often all the time. So when he does get a hold of me, I respond right away.
Oh,
John.
yes, yes. Well, he speaks unbelievably highly of you, of course, and with very good reason. And you guys have such a
Thank you.
great connection. And I have to say, first of all, I'm a huge fan of your work, and I know that you've been in the industry a really long time, and our paths have never really crossed up until today, which is funny because one, we share the coolest last name and most common last name ever,
Yeah.
and then two, because of course you came on my radar during Marco Polo, and of course now Warrior. And not that my opinion matters very much, but I was just super impressed with the fight sequences and the choreography, and I just really love the style. And I was like, who is the fight choreographer in this? And I'm like, I don't know him. How is this possible? Because I try to stay in the know. I've been out of the industry for a long time, but I usually recognize a lot of the names and go, oh, this is really awesome. And I was super excited to meet you because I really enjoy your work.
Well, thank you very much. And my work also attributes to the team I have. I've always have a great team. I always make sure I have a no asshole policy. If there are those kind of people, cut and go.
Yeah.
It just wrecks the whole dynamics of a team, especially when I have a team coming from because I choose people from around the world. So we don't all speak English or Chinese or Japanese or Russian or Kazakh or whatever it is. So we have to make sure that there's always that common interest of people of how they are in it, how they interact and how they are with the world, and essentially. So I know that no matter what the commonalities will happen, it'll be a peaceful one, and they all appreciate each other, and they're all still friends now, which is fantastic.
Yeah, you can almost tell, and I got a chance to peruse your website and some of the background videos, but you can almost tell when you see a production, and there's just this cohesiveness in. I have a very strong affection for second unit, so I'm always like kind of keeping my eye on that, and just you can really tell when things connect, right? There's just something kind of magical about that, and that makes so much sense. And I love that you just shared that you have kind of a multicultural stunt team, and then when you bring people in, it's because you're shooting all over the world and you have all these different diverse type of individuals and not speaking English. What's kind of cool about stunts and second unit is you don't necessarily need to speak English. Like there's like kind of universal movement, right? And so can you kind of talk about what that's like? Because there is still a challenge, of course, with language being a barrier, but what is that like having so many different individuals from different backgrounds?
I love it. I mean, like you see Marco Polo 2, we had 17 countries. And like I think it was seven different languages. But I have like a mandatory class that we do every morning, and we all get in there, we train. But the production loves it so much that the cooks are joining, the producers are joining. John's in there like a dirty shirt. The ADs are there, like the crew. We let them join. They give us a facility big enough. So I think the most we ever had one time was like 115 people all joining the session, and it's basically like a full session of like using weights and movement and some martial art techniques and everything like that all kind of go through together, and we rotate. So the idea is that I have I force people to partner with people they don't usually would,
Okay.
because because of language. But once they understand the technique, when they understand what has to be done, and they're all martial artists or some sort of physical person, they
Yeah.
get it. And it's great to watch them later on. And you see like, a Kazakh guy and you see like a Chinese guy, and they're both laughing at the same jokes, but it's not told in either of their languages. They understand what body language is. And by the end of it, it's camaraderie. It's like we're through the trenches. So it's fantastic. So that's one of my key points. And then afterwards, when the crew goes away and it's just stunts, then we have another session of like another hour and a half of just martial arts. And usually, because let's say I have 15 guys from China, but they're all specialties are different things.
Mm-hmm.
And I got guys from Japan, I got guys from Korea, I got guys from like Kazan. So every day we usually put like a bowl, put everyone's one skill they have in there, and we pick out two. So it could be like b-boy dancing and boxing, or capoeira and sabat kicking, or whatever it is, and we'll combine that and we'll teach everybody those things every day. So whoever's as good at that skill, well then they'll teach that class that day.
Oh, wow.
Afterwards. So everyone's getting like a total, involvement. Everyone's totally involved. Everyone has a chance to be in front of the people, and everyone has a chance to teach. And everyone has a chance to learn the skill. And then once we get those skills going, ones that people like, we start to rehashing them back, and then we're going. And then we get another day where we kind of just have stunt guys there, and we're teaching them different skills like either fire burns or high falls or whatever it is, just to get everybody adapt. And the idea is to get everyone on the team, because everyone's coming from different worlds, different backgrounds. Some people have never done certain things. Like most of the guys from China have never done ratchets, so we put on ratchets to get them used to that, because they're used to just 10 guys pulling on a line.
Yes.
So they get those things are changing in their lives, and it's great because you start watching them all kind of evolve together.
Yes. Yeah, there's nothing like throwing people together to do crazy stunt work to build trust, because I know trust is such a huge part of it. And like you said, you end up having this like connectivity when you meet another person who's done stunts, because you show the scars, you show that you kind of go through the trenches together, in a way. And so I love what you just described. I'm like, oh, how do I sign up for this class? This sounds amazing.
Just call me, Mimi.
Don't say that. People who know me are going, oh gosh, Brett just did not know what he just did. I am very notorious for like people. I get a chance to meet people from all over the world, and they're like, oh, come out and visit me in Hawaii. I'm like, don't say that. I will show up at your door, and I will. I am all about travel and opportunity and just like living life. So yeah, don't invite, because I actually show up.
Like, yo, what's up, Brett?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, you said to call. It was on air. Everyone heard it.
Yeah, everybody heard it.
Everybody heard it. I have like a couple skills, so I think I could contribute a little bit at least. But it just sounds like so much fun, because it's true. And I love you're talking about all of these different stunt things, because it's just super nostalgic for me. And I really wish I had something like that, where the coordinator kind of had this moment where it was like, hey, let's all kind of take a moment to learn. One of my first major project was on a Hong Kong style set, and you know how that goes. So it wasn't like, hey, let me show you how to do this, like, you go. And it was just like, it was very, very, very intense. And I had never done so many different things ever, and had never learned it. And that was interesting. So I think that your stunt performing team is very lucky that you are providing such an educational environment, and a safe one as well, because of course, when people talk about, stunts, you're imagining all the crazy stuff. And I always talk to people, I'm like, it's not always that. Like sometimes it's just sitting around and waiting to take one thing on normal sets, but the shows you work on are super charged, high action, lots and lots of things. But safety's huge. And so I think even just what you described is like, you get to go to a production and you're getting a full stunt training as well, which is kind of a bonus. That's very atypical. I haven't, like I said, I've been a little bit removed for a while, but is that kind of just specific to you, or is that kind of like what the industry's like now?
I think it's kind of specific to me, because I started it a little while ago, but it's for many reasons. I need bonding between guys who are from, have never met and never would have met until the show, and now they have to kind of create the personalities, ego, blah, 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 sort of thing. I got to be able to quell that, because you have a team of that big, there's going to be personalities. So you gotta make that happen. Two, it's for safety wise. So I bring a team on, and we may not have all the different skills that we need. However, if they have the aptitude for it, which is what I'm certain people I bring on, then I can bring them on and start training them there. So therefore, I don't have to keep bringing people in all the time because that's a cost thing for production.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have a big enough team with enough guys on there with enough skills, then it gives me the idea to be able to use everybody and keep utilizing, and those things helps with budget wise. But
Right.
I'm a firm believer in luck. I mean, life's short. A friend of mine told me one time, it was a really good saying. I loved it. I think it was Eva Yang. She said, she said, life is short. Days are long, but years are short.
Mm,
It
true.
makes sense. To
Yeah.
me, it really honed in with me, which is true. So the ability to have to enjoy your work, your job, where you are, the people you are, is really important. Because if I really hated my job in the last 5 months, but I was here for 5 months and I hated my life and I died tomorrow, let's just say, then what was it all for?
Mm-hmm.
So I really try and build the aspect of everybody's really enjoying their time. So, with the team anyways, but we also try to do excursions. So like on Warrior, like a lot of the Chinese guys are very reserved. They don't want to go out. They don't want to do this. They just want to stay home but by the end of it, maybe you should have seen them. They were skydiving.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they can't swim, but they were out swimming with seals, and then they were doing like a paragliding, and then they were doing the foil dance, and they were loving it. And to see that, and from now, like I'm in touch with a lot of them on WeChat, and they'll
Yeah.
message me pictures of what they're doing
Oh my
that they
gosh.
never ever would have done like anywhere, and they're so different from how the regular flock flows, and it's
Yeah.
a hierarchy. We got to follow its hierarchy. No, they think like you got to live life, and
Yeah.
I really have to enjoy the people I'm around, because like there's days where I'm working like 20-hour days,
Yeah.
and if I hate you and I have to work 20-hour days and I got to be around you, oh, it's not going to be good.
No, it's not
Yeah,
gonna be
I
good.
just no. So it's mandatory for them to enjoy, and when they enjoy it, they get along better. When they get along
Mhm.
better, they're in that bubble, and then they're in the trenches together. Like I have guys, let's say on okay, so Tom Cruise, Last Samurai, what he would do is he would put a tent in the middle of a field,
Mhm.
like all day, at the highest point of the sun. It would be so freaking hot there. I don't know if you've been to New Zealand. That
Yes.
your skin melt is going to burn after 23 seconds with no
Mhm.
sunblock. But he put the biggest heaters in each corner of his tent, and he would walk in with full armor regalia, and he would want to do the fight in full armor for like 2 hours,
Wow.
because what he wants to ensure is that no matter whatever happens on the day, he can do it
Mhm.
in the worst possible conditions. So that's what I do. Like on this show here, there's these guys like, I'm on Halo.
Mhm.
Obviously we have these suits, and the suits are very cumbersome, the big, like that. So we kind of came in the last minute. So I put weight jackets on them. And the suits are really heavy. So these weight things are like a good 20, 30 kilos
Wow.
heavier. And they have to walk with them all day. And they train with them all day. They do CrossFit all day. They do fights all day. They do all day. And then I'll break it up every other day. Once we start getting closer to the shooting, that I start giving them a break and let their bodies relax and heal.
Mhm.
But they're used to it. So when they're in that armor, they're able to. It's kind of what it is on Marco Polo, because we're in Malaysia. It's 117 degrees. It's like a
Wow.
200 degrees humidity. And these are armor, like layered armor with layers of clothing, on horseback in the sun. They have to be able to survive this. And if they're not used to anything like this, then they'll just die,
Yeah. Oh, is that
pretty much.
all? They'll just die.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Yeah, I don't know if that I want to go to that class, the one with the 20 or 30 kilos. I'll skip that one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
oh my gosh. Well, I love that you're sharing this, because I think we all as viewers just get to see the end product, and you know how viewers are. They're so critical, right? Like, oh, that was just okay or whatever. And they don't think about the challenges and the challenges that you face as not just like second unit director, but even just stunt coordinator or as a stunt person, and how many factors come into play. Like you said, budget. People don't think about when they're watching the final thing. It's just I like it or I don't, or that, there's always
Yeah,
critics and stuff like that. But I think
of
there's
course.
just so much that goes into something like a fight that people have no idea of. And I wanted to mention that I really loved the huge riot in Warrior in the second season, that you kind of the big finale kind of thing. And that's kind of something that I feel like people will watch and they'll enjoy it, but maybe not really appreciate just how
Oh,
insane that was. And from, like I said, the very little experience I have, I'm going, wow, that this is really well done and it's just super impressive. So maybe you could share a little bit about those challenges, either specific to that or something else, and or any interesting story from that shot.
oh man. I didn't even know we were going to get through that because we were block shooting. So we were shooting 7, 8,
Mm.
9, and 10 at the same time.
Wow.
And prepping 6, which is the Dustin Newens episode. So 7 ended pretty quickly. 8 was going, but there's still work to do in all of them. And then we're doing, 8 and 9 and 7's finishing 8, 9, 10. I'm choreographing 10 and previewing it while we're shooting this, getting ready for the big riots. So, I mean, I had to have 3 guys that are previewing for me right away. So because we finished 7, we're finishing 7 and we already shot previewed it. But 8, 9, 10, we're shooting previews for it and conceptualizing everything like that. So I had Johnny Yang on one, I had Jason Ning on the other one, I had Steve Davis on the other one, and they're basically shooting, and I'm choreographing each, and then they're shooting, and then we got to go watch the monitors. Okay, this is happening. Usually, I sit there while I'm doing my computer work. I have monitors there that are signaled to their wireless to their cameras as you're shooting. So I'm watching that while I'm doing the work. Say, no, change that angle, go over here. Cut over there, go there. No, you go over here. So it's
Oh my gosh, it's like live TV.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like doing live, which is a disaster for stunts.
But it's the only way we could do that. The thing was that Jonathan Tropper, he said, which is I'm very thankful for that. He said, let Brett shoot everything. Everything goes okay through him and the director. So the script conceptualized. I talk to the actors where they feel like they want the characters to go, what they want to do, so I can choreograph it that in their characters. So it always looks different for everybody. And then done, they look at the previs and say, no, change this, change that. Okay, good. I'll go change it. We shoot it again. Okay, great. So on the day, I'm shooting exactly this. And it's not like where we get on the day, what's the best angle for this?
Right.
No, the angle pick, we already know it. We know it's good. I can create the action exactly like that. We don't have the time. We're shooting 4 episodes, prepping another one. And episode 6 was like full on fights. All of us fight,
Yes.
right? So it was like, so Jonathan Trump said, no, let Brett take care of this, and which is great. I'm thankful for that. He gave me the opportunity. Nerve wracking, of course, because I'm representing for Bruce Lee's vision.
No pressure.
Yeah, because if I mess that up,
no, I think your fans are thoroughly satisfied and just so appreciative of the fact that you've been able to capture this essence of this icon without imitating, but more of like an homage. And I think that's a really difficult balance. And I don't think, as much as the fans love it, they understand what they're seeing, like how delicate that is, that line that you walk, and you do it so beautifully. And so, I mean, just kudos for that, because even just that, like, it's just obviously there's the vision there, there's the homage to Bruce Lee, but you're also not like, okay, this character is Bruce Lee and we're trying to be him in this, right? It's just so well done. So, but I was curious about that riot scene because I was like, this looks like second unit, but it's like obviously the main shot, I was curious like how the technicality of that was, and it makes a lot of sense because I was like, oh, I know, I'm dying to talk to you about that. So thank you for sharing. It sounded crazy.
Genny Gordon, because so while she was shooting the emotional part of the guy getting hung, I was shooting when the cops are getting attacked.
Yeah.
And then while that happened, she leapfrogged over to the emotional parts within and inside the when Mei Ling saving Toy, and then I'm out there. I start the fight, the rumble.
Wow.
And I started shooting all that. And while I'm doing there, we'll shoot the pass with the first charge coming in. All that's happening, and then when that fight's continue on, she'll go off and she'll start the moments with Joe and Andrew when they get to back. Then I come back in and join there, and then she'll start the next bit with Lee. Then I'll go to the next fight, which is inside the Young Jun in the laundromat, and I'll come back out and I'll join over there. And then we do the nunchuck fight, and then we come together on the nunchuck fight at the end. But while she's peppering all the other stuff, then I'm doing all the periphery stuff afterwards. And it's literally bang, bang, bang. Like it was like both. And you know, we're shooting 2, 3 different episodes at this point now. 7's done, but 8, 9 is still going, and then we're doing 10. And so that's then the 10's the big arc, right? And there's 2 different directors too shooting at the same time. So we're bouncing back and forth. And then I got to jump on with Dustin because he's prepping 6, and 6 is a huge thing. So I have to let one of my guys go. But my team, solid. I mean, my right hand is Johnny Yang, and my left hand is Jason Ning. And then I had like a whole bunch of my guys there from HITZ International, and the South African guys were fantastic. The South African crew was great, but really the homage and the stuff that walking that fine line you're talking about, that's a lot to do with Andrew Koji, because we talk long and hard about it. He doesn't want to be the guy that's trying to imitate Bruce Lee, because you just can't. You can't be Bruce Lee.
That's there's a lot of failures in cinematic history of that.
And he didn't want to be Bruce Lee. He wanted to bring life to his vision. And you know, Shannon and Jonathan Tropper all talk about the homage parts, and when we add parts in which are suitable, and not just creating moments that are homage for the hell of it, it's actually in the moment of the story where we can, where it's actually, it makes sense for it to happen. And then you add one little bit to like 6 when he gets cut by the guy with the long nails, and he turns around and we see it. I mean,
very Enter the Dragon.
Like that. Yeah, very stuff like that.
I love that one because Shekin is my uncle. Like I call him like he's very close to our family before he passed away, really? And everything. Wow. Yeah. And so I was like, oh, so that one's always a little bit nostalgic for me and very close to me. So I want to talk about martial arts because obviously that's like my life. And I love, like I said, your fight style. I love your choreography. And I know you studied so many different styles. And I was just curious about like kind of your martial background. And of course, I know that you were getting into the stunt business, so you have to learn such a diverse, like different art forms. But tell me a little bit more about your martial art background.
Well, I started when I was a little kid. I was like 7. I started Kung Fu. My dad enrolled me in there and do some Shaolin stuff like that, but I didn't stick with it very long. And then I went to karate right away. And I guess karate was a really big thing growing up at that point. It really stormed in, you know, the Olympics and all sorts of things. And so Shotokan, and then I got my black in that. And I started going up, and I still kept that up. And I did Shitoryu and Goju, and then I did Taekwondo, which I got my black one Taekwondo. And then afterwards, I still kept going with my Shotokan, which I got to a pretty high level. And then afterwards, during that time, you know, you start doing things like reminisce and Muay Thai, boxing, Krabi Kabong. You start learning all these different things. I went away from martial arts for a little bit because for me at that point, it was my dad just forcing me to go. You know, and you know, as a rebellious teenager, like, Dad, come on, man. I want to go out and meet some friends, go look at some girls. Come on. I had to quit sports. I was in the volleyball team, basketball team, and track. And I had to quit all those sports because he made me just do martial arts 7 days a week.
I see.
And traveling everywhere doing it. I would go to Los Angeles, I had to go to San Francisco.
Wow.
You know, he just kept doing all these things. So, and at that point, you kind of a little resentful, but I came back to it on my own. And that's what I got into, alternative martial arts, all these different Muay Thai and all that stuff, and which I thought was kind of cool. Then I went into Krav Maga, which is kind of a hybrid. My job at the time, putting myself through school, was working as a doorman at nightclubs.
Okay, so yeah, that was helpful.
Krav Maga was very helpful
for that.
Yeah. Only because it's quick, efficient, and you can kind of move things around, and it really blends. So with Bruce Lee's idealism of you know, the hybridism of martial arts, it's not just strictly just one way. You can learn different aspects of different things, and you can kind of make it your own kind of thing, unless it's supposed to be specifically a certain look. Right. And that's what I tried to do in the show. So those are my martial arts, and then I started doing, you know, I dabbled into Silat, and I dabbled into these things, Savat, I dabbled into these things. So, but once, as a martial artist, and you know this, once you're reach a certain level of martial arts, you tend to be able to pick up things a little quicker because you understand not just technique, but concepts and theory and idealism. Foundations, yes. I have this guy, Adam Chan. He teaches combative Wing Chun out of Vancouver, Canada. This guy's amazing. He's a little guy. He's about 5'4", and he's a hermit type. He takes one technique. He'll train that one technique 12 hours a day for like a month.
Oh, wow.
And then But not only that, though, I learned the most from him when I'm sitting there talking to him. And he's teaching class, but he talks about the history, the theory, the reasons, everything like that. I learned more. Why does that? Because in my technique adapts that because I understand how to utilize that. So that's what I like that. I find that more interesting at that point.
Yeah, of course.
I can't be like John Fusco and I go up to the top of like some mountain over the ocean in Hawaii and sit there for 5 days and just train in the rain. And he'll send pictures. He'll send pictures, with his mantis and this. And I'm training on this mountain in Hawaii, Brad. Check it out. Check out the view of that. And and then he'll send a video of him doing the mantis for him and going. Like, I know.
Well, I have, yes, I have an affinity for that, of course, being my style and all. But like, so did that kind of propel you? How did you get into the stunt industry? Like, because you already had all of these skills, or did you start to learn them because of also the stunt industry, or what kind of had you move into what you're doing now?
I really had no idea. I mean, I didn't even know I could get into the film industry. I lived in Toronto, but I moved to Vancouver.
Oh, I love Toronto.
Yeah, but have you been to Vancouver? Oh, okay. Vancouver's nicer.
But I haven't spent a lot of time there, and the reason I like Toronto is also because I have family there, so it's like connectivity.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So then I moved to BC. I was doing my pre-meds.
Okay.
And I was gonna move towards opening up a facility like a gym and martial arts and be able to. But I didn't like the Western medicine aspect of things and how kind of was. And I looked at the physio. I got my Kinesiology, human kinetics diploma, and then afterwards I got into sports rehab massage therapy because it was a little bit different. And so understanding how the body works, I can open up a facility. I can have a gym there. Everyone gets there. And then I can teach you martial arts and I can break you down and I can fix you. And that was the plan.
Yes.
But then I met a girl and she had a talent agency. And so we dated a little bit. And then she said, "Hey, do you want to be in my agency?" And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And then I never even thought about it because I used to just watch that Vanishing Sun.
Yeah, of course. Russell Wong.
Oh man, I loved it.
Right.
And every other week it was Hercules and then Vanishing Sun. So she got me this commercial. It was called Karate Fighters. Like those toys, you put on a little stick and you swing it this way.
Okay.
And then the toy swings and punches and kicks, and you hit the center part and the guy goes flying. Yeah. So I got that and I loved it. And then while I was working at the clubs, I met the guys that were all of the TV series Ninja Turtles.
Okay.
And they said, "Hey, you should try out." I said, "Yeah." I auditioned and I got one of the parts as one of the bad guys, which carried me over. So then, and that's how it started. And I just kind of, and that's how it kind of, I finished school. So I was a sports rehab massage therapist, but then I don't really pursue that. And I basically just stunts, and I got into coordinating and second directing, and that's, and now directing soon coming up. We got a couple scripts we got money for already, and be directing soon.
That's super exciting. I was going to ask about that because I know a lot of people in the industry, and they just, I'm not a director. I stick with the stunts, or I want to kind of go on to do the coordinating, because let's face it. I mean, I know there's a lot of older stunt performers, and there's no disrespect there, but it is like our bodies after a while don't want to continue to take that abuse. I mean, mine didn't anyway. And it was curious, because I know you're doing the second unit, like if that's kind of like one of your goals is to kind of just go on to mainstream directing and not even just the action, or do you just kind of have that love for second unit?
Both. Like I love second unit because I love being able to create that. So, but as a director, say you look at Dave Leach or like Chad Stahelski, like they're able to do both. They kind of sit there, they can do both, and that's the aspect that I was kind of hoping to. Although I am very drawn to story, and like when I develop the styles for each character, like some warrior, you sit and talk to the characters, Joe and Dean, or Andrew. Diane, you just any kind of action that's in there, you talk to them, where do they feel they want to go? How do you think? Then I can develop the style to that, because then their body naturally wants to gravitate to that. And so when you're watching it, it's not like everybody moves exactly the same. When you're watching, it drives me crazy when you watch these guys are here, and it's a cool fight. It's a very cool fight. They got some cool stuff, cool cameras, cool wires. Yeah. but they both are using the exact same moves and they're both using the exact same things. They're just doing cool tricks. It's like, it's fight to fight.
Yes,
But when you have a
yes.
fight character driven and moment driven and arc driven, that fight becomes so much more alive. And so that's kind of like I do with them. And then I give their style. So then when you can watch them fighting, you'll know that's completely different. You
Mhm.
know they're different styles. You can tell Andrew's in a rage moment or he's in a playful moment, but his style's technique, what he uses, and how he utilizes it is very different. And that's where I think a lot of the different martial arts aspects come to play. I'm not just using cool tricks. I'm not just using cool wires. It's actually is driven through their character, which I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That definitely comes across. And I think that is one of the reasons specifically I was so blown away by your choreo and your conceptualization, because I'm always talking through movies. It's like probably the most annoying things to sit with me. And I'm like telling my husband, I'm like, oh my gosh, no, this is like amazing, because you could see that you're playing to the strengths of someone's body type and not trying to make it fit a certain thing just because that's what the coordinator or the fight choreographer said, okay, here's what the fight is. It seems very specific. And I was going to ask about the whole specialty thing, because of course everyone has their thing, and it's not just a weapon. Like obviously some of them have knives and some of them have, the wire, but it's not just the weapon that makes the styling different. It's like how they're moving and whether they're using more upper body or they're like more low to the ground or they're more aerial. So it definitely comes across. And I love that you articulated that, because I was going to actually ask about it. And it really does make for a lot more of an interesting action sequence. And that also I noticed right away, even from Marco Polo, which was even more specific, because you really had the style, like different styles against one another. And that was a little bit more obvious because it's traditional, and you're like, oh, this is this animal or that, that kind of give me that Shaw Brothers like feeling.
Yeah, which is very hard because Marco Polo was based the martial arts from, like, let's say 100 Eyes, and that's based off of 1300, not present day. So developing that and trying to make it look more authentic was actually a little harder. See, I don't know all those kung fu styles. I know the movement. I know some. So I'll develop the choreography according to it. And then the guys who I'm dealing with that for those specific styles, we'll talk about, okay, we were doing this. Okay, let's give me another move that can kind of look like this kind of happening. Okay, that's too modern. What's happening? Let's just give me this, how it's going to look. Okay, great. Now let's involve that in the body movement, how it's going to look. Then you talk to the actor. How does this work for you? Can you move this way? So I'm not going to make him move this way if he just can't do it. So you adjust for his body strength, right? If he's, how he's going to move, and then that changes the choreo individually per person, and not just a general choreography.
Right. And I will tell listeners who are listening to this that not every stunt coordinator, choreographer, director is this generous and involved with the process. So I think that what you're saying is a very very hands-on, but also it shows how much you really care about the outcome. Because I've been on sets where it's like, all right, well, you guys just kind of play around with something. Let me know what you come up with, or, and maybe because there was that they want us to be a little more independent. But I think that it really shows in the end product, like the amount of attention to detail that you're putting into each thing. And the fact that you spent so much time talking with the actors about the characters, that I think is really huge, and it really does come across. So I'm just pretty much just telling you how awesome you are.
Well, no, thank you. I have a great team. Like I said, like they're like where I'm lacking, like my team totally helps me makes up for it, and every team I bring on board is kind of like that. So, well, I try to make them to be like that, and it's mandatory that they have to be able to get along with the crew, and say, yeah, because we're all here together. We're not here, but try and be here. And as long as they understand that, like I've had a few guys who come on board and they kind of treat the makeup like, like, you don't need makeup, and or no, cut this wardrobe off. I'm like, no, don't do that, because it makes for a bad environment within the set.
Of course. And if they're true martial artists, they should be pretty humble.
Yeah.
So just
that's very true.
beat them with a stick.
Why do you say that? Because, yeah. As long as you
But
get the wax.
well, on accident, of course. No, no, I enjoyed watching like the training that you do, like kind of the behind the scenes stuff and just kind of the gritty part of it, because again, as viewers, you forget how much training kind of goes into this, and not just for the stunt team, for the acting, but I always like to hear when the actors in interviews give a lot of credit to our stunt team and things like that, because it's kind of the unsung hero of most action things, right? Like they're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, it's there, but it's kind of looked up, you get passed over. So it's nice to hear when, and you could see like on this set, specifically Warrior, it sounds like everybody's very cohesive from the stunts to the first unit. Everybody
To the
seems pretty,
acting,
the
everybody.
actors, yeah, it seems very, very
Yeah.
cohesive, like a family. So I'm really excited that, of course, you getting your season 3. So kudos to all the fans out there who were like hounding the social media. And I think there's not just because it's a great show, but I think there's a relevance to the time of the fact that right now there's all of this anti-Asian hate, and there is so much going on. I am an activist, so I do a lot of work in the community for speaking out against these things. I've done a lot of seminars and things like that to just try to bring awareness and bystander intervention training. But really, I think it's just such a timely show to have, where we are screaming for positive representation and screaming for our stories to be shared. And while it is historical fiction, they are based around a lot of historical facts, like the riot. There was a riot, maybe there was only like 4 deaths. So it wasn't as like insane as what we saw, but it was based around these horrible things that happen. And I think it's such an important show that kind of showcases these stories, and it can actually help people go and research and learn more about what's happening, what has happened historically to Asian Americans in history, but also just having positive representation. As somebody who grew up watching, and like you said, oh my God, Vanishing Sun, there's like a one thing that we have where there's kind of a cool show that doesn't show an Asian as just like the nerd or the
bad guy.
Yeah. Or like, so it's like good timing, I think, as well, which probably also helped like HBO get that pressure.
Yeah. Oh, totally. But yeah, definitely. I'm moving into the directing world, and we have a few projects on the go, and so we'll see what happens.
Well, I definitely want you to continue doing the good work you're doing, and being able to, like you said, kind of cross over those lines. And like, I think it only helps to have the background to be able to kind of go into first unit, to have that second unit. I think it's just such a strong foundation, because, and I don't want to like this to sound wrong, but knowing camera for second unit is a different challenge than even like, because I think first unit's a little more straightforward when it comes to angles, right, and camera and stuff, and so you really know like the
coverage.
Coverage. Yeah. So I think it's going to be fantastic, whatever it is that you do next. But I was curious how your kinesiology background, and because I'm very interested in movement and how that kind of does play into how you see movement. Does that background really affect, or not affect, but maybe just kind of influence the way you think about fight sequences and things like that? Or do you think it's just kind of a separate thing? Because I mean, it's very cool you have this background on the science side.
It does, because when you play, if you watch most of my stuff anyways, it plays into a lot of realism stuff. I mean, yeah, I can do the fantastical stuff, but I prefer the stuff like Born Identity and these things that are realistic. So the kines really helps, because when you have a lack of something, let's say this, you get stabbed in the arm here, or you do this, or you're not going to just do this. It just so then when I create the movements for the choreo afterwards, it's more about how we're going to compensate to make this happen, as opposed to just let's do this right away. Hey, did you just get shot in the arm there?
Yes.
By 4-5? Yeah. How are you blocking like this? Or Kinesiology also has the movement with human kinetics. So it's like when people are fighting, and if you have someone that's like 200 pounds and he comes down with a hammer fist on you and you block like this, you're not gonna be able to do this.
Yes.
You have to understand the motion, what it creates,
impact,
and that will and that changes your movement, adapts your steps, adapts your what you have to do, and so And that's one of the things when I'm doing, when I'm watching, I said, there's no way you're going to do that. So why not? I can just do this. I said, no, there's no way. I'm 210 pounds. I hit you. You're not going to stand there and block it like this. It'll definitely hit you like that. It's just, unless you're rolling with it and you roll it, then yeah, you can do that. But that,
right.
you see now, look where your feet is, look where your arm is. Now you can't do that move that you want to do. You have to keep evolving with the steps. And that's what fighting is all about. And that's Bruce Lee's talking about. It's all about evolving. And so I try and keep that in mind when I'm doing these things, even if we're going to do a cool trick or whatever it is, but it's got to be purposefully. Like, how many times I've seen a movie when someone does a butterfly twist, for the sake of doing a butterfly twist, okay, at least make something happen why they have to do the butterfly twist in a certain moment. Okay, it just, so
yes,
I try, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have the same criticism, which is why I was so enthused about your work. And I know I'm hounding this point, but a lot of people are like, oh, you must love Kung Fu movies. I'm like, actually, they're far and few in between in the more recent days, right? I have a lot of nostalgia for my old school stuff and
which is what it's for. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so lately it's just, you kind of, there's just kind of I'm pretty critical, I guess you could say, or I'm just, like you said, it's exhaustive to just see a butterfly twist for no reason, just because, or to see all of these things and to overuse wire work. Like that is a really huge pet peeve of mine, is the overuse of wire work. And I was like, yes, it was cool when everyone realized in the Matrix that this was being used for 20 years in Hong Kong cinema and everything. But the overuse of things, I think is something that it's something maybe people don't even realize that they're not, why it doesn't connect or why they don't enjoy it. But yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. I was going to ask you, because you've been in the industry so long, have you seen any changes? I know I talk to a lot of cool stunt performers, and I always ask them, do you think CG is not that you'll be replaced, but do you think that's changed the way stunts are now? Do you see, since you've been in the industry since the early 2000s, or maybe even earlier than that, have you seen kind of any changes? But it sounds like we're still using ratchets. You're still using, a lot of the same things like fire burns, instead of opting for things that kind of go into a digital platform. But have you seen changes in the industry, or do you see it evolving even more? Or do you think it's kind of still at the core what it is and was?
I started in 95.
95.
And yeah, I mean, I definitely have. I mean, you watch how we do the wire work now. It's a lot more elaborative. I mean, we have slack lines, and I know they're using that already on Matrix, but it really didn't come into North America maybe until iRobot, when Glenn Boswell came out here and he started doing all these things, and everything's different. The rig setups are different, and the CG definitely makes a big impact. I mean, right now I'm working on Halo.
Right.
So you can see it's definitely a lot of CG, and those aspects, like we're saying, okay, well, we don't need that because the CG take over here, CG take over here. All we need is a middle motion. So I can just get them up, do the middle motion, and CG take the end too. And it's only a matter of time when CG can probably do all of it.
Right.
What you're gonna miss from CG is the human aspect. They can create humans really well, but you can always tell they're not humans.
Yeah.
They can do robots, yeah, great. Cars, cool. Buildings, yeah. Fire, all this stuff. But the one thing they're not going to be able to replicate is the idea of human interaction and how the body will react when it hits things. And you can watch a CG body hit a wall and go flying off, and you go, oh, that was kind of cool. But if you knew it was a real person doing that, you'd be like, oh, that's gonna hurt.
You feel it.
And that's a connection we have with it. And although I think it will take a toll on our stunt performers' careers, I think that it will probably be really highly specialized at that point. But I don't think it'll eliminate it completely, because you'll still always need that human component. And no matter what they do, I mean, that's why 300 was so awesome, because they combined. It was Zack Snyder revolutionized how they CG with human with live, and it looked fantastic. Then they started doing all this big CD stuff, and it was just like, it wasn't really, Transformers. So you do Transformers, but
right.
It was
you feel like very removed. Yes, you feel very removed. I'm with you. I really like the close in and the, where you just you feel like you're right in next to the fight, and you're like ducking from the.
those impacts, you're feeling
Yes,
that.
you
Like
feel those impacts. Yes, I'm
yeah,
with
and that
you.
moment when he turns and looks and he goes, and you know you got hit, and you're like, oh, you felt that, and the sweat coming down. You look in his
Mhm.
eyes, and when he moves, you're like, those things you can't replace that with
Mhm.
CG. I don't care how much they think they can,
Mhm.
but you will not. I mean, it's you can't. I mean, Avatar, they kind of do something like that, but you really don't identify with the blue. You can with the emotions happening,
Right, but it
but you know, and that's all mocap stuff. So yeah, you can play those moments and those acting
mhm,
moments with them and all like that. But it's different when Sam Worthington's doing it because you feel it.
mhm.
Um,
100%,
so
100%.
yeah, and I mean, that's my personal view.
And we'll take it. That's what I'm here to find out is your personal view.
Yeah.
But as a stunt performer, because of course now you're directing and you're doing more of the choreography, and that I think people don't realize also ends up being just a lot of planning and post planning work. And I don't want to say office work, that's the wrong word, but you're on the computer more. But I know you're still very hands on. But as a stunt performer, I always like to ask like about crazy things that maybe went wrong or injuries or things that you've like kind of just escaped. Listeners like to hear about that stuff too. If you're willing to share anything that you can think
Of
of.
mine,
Yeah.
there was a movie called X-Men 2
Mhm.
where I was it's when Pyro comes out on the deck and he goes, you know, there's those mutants that are the worst kind. I'm one of them.
Mhm.
He lights things, he blasts the police officer
I
there. I
remember
was
it.
one of them. I was a guy. Well, anyways, I'm there on the other side of the car. So the car's here, the guy's up here, he's shooting down this way, and there's a guy here, and I'm over here. the What happened was there's all these things that kept going wrong on that day with the way they're rigging and stuff like that. And there was two opposing teams, and they weren't getting along, so it just wasn't very cohesive. And then you had Brian Singer. I mean, that alone was, you know, enough to kind of turn the tables. But there was an explosion right down below me, and one guy kept pulling me closer, and one guy kept pulling me forward, and they kept doing that because they weren't agreeing with each other. But there's two teams on there, so it was hard. Um, and because it's wire, I mean it's fire. They can't put tech. They use wire,
Mhm.
and they wrap it around me two wraps,
Okay.
which sends me flying about 25 feet. But the pull line that was pulling me initially was only like 40 feet from where the ratchet was, and then they changed it to 65 feet.
Oh.
So the rigger on the day when they finally got going, you know, you press the button, but there's stretch. So even it's like 1/10 of a second, 2/10 of a second, I'm in the fire. I end up being in the fire like 1 second too long, and I'm sitting here like this. But you can't move because if I create slack on a ratchet, and
Yeah.
the wraps around me become slack, when it does cinch, it'll just
Y-
pretty much break all my ribs.
Yeah.
So you had to sit in the fire. But while I was in the fire, even for like 1 second, I can literally feel all my skin charring, and I'm like so here, like every time I tan it, it just gets really darker
Oh.
and here because I was in the fire for long. It said second and third degree burns, and that was that day. That was a brutal day. Burns are the worst. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that happened that day.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, that is horrible. I've never done anything with fire, and I don't think I know I never will, but I can't even imagine because I
yeah.
every time I see a fire thing, I'm like, ah, like I feel you feel kind of concerned, but that's horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you have one person kind of controlling it all, you can manage about what this. It's just a chaotic set that day.
Yeah. And
Uh,
do you think you're because you know you kind of described a set that sounds like directly the opposite of what we were talking about earlier with Warrior and your other sets where
yeah.
everyone's like so cohesive. Do you think that those experiences you had really affect the way you run sets now because of what like your experiences that you've had?
Of course. And also, you know, back in the day, a lot of coordinators would be like, if you're a new stunt performer and you ask, hey, I don't know about this, they get mad at you, you know, like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
just do it. But
Mhm.
now there's a learning curve here, and the performer has every right to ask because
Okay.
it's also their safety. So any performer asks me, hey, I have no problem saying, hey, no, this is gonna happen here, this happens here. Your action's here. You have to do this in order for this to happen. Okay, but you know, you obviously hire the right performer that can do that.
Of
That's
course.
why. And
Yeah.
but you have to explain to them so they're comfortable too. Because if they're nervous in their moment, then they won't perform to their best either. And
Mhm.
chances are, then they'll get hurt.
Yeah.
So at least
Yeah.
they
I mean,
understand. Yeah.
Danger for sure. Yeah. I love that you just kind of described that, because I've had those experiences, the culture of I'm afraid to say no. I don't feel
Yeah.
comfortable with this. And I told you earlier, I was on a set and it was just, from a guy from Hong Kong, and he was just yelling, and it was all in Cantonese. And while I understand it, I'm not like super astute and fluent and perfect. And so I was just getting yelled at all the time, and it was just a
Yeah.
horrible experience. But
Oh, totally.
I learned a lot. I won't lie. It is one way to learn, but I wouldn't say it's the best way to learn.
Yes, because you could have got hurt.
Oh yeah, I did get hurt.
You see?
I did
Exactly.
get hurt because he partnered me with someone that didn't really know what she was doing. And I was like, I knew my part, quote unquote, but I was like, she's never done this type of choreo. And of course I got like smacked right in the head, and I had 2 black eyes for like, I was in college at the time. So of course I looked like abused girlfriend of someone or whatever. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I mean, and luckily that was all, right? Luckily
Yeah.
that was all. That's actually very minor, especially compared to what you just shared. But it sets you up for disaster, and then it's not good for the shoot. It's not good for the performers, and
No.
but it's also a different culture, right? The Hong Kong. I hate to keep picking on that. It's the only experience I've had, right? But the culture of like, well, there's 10 more stunt guys outside, so you're kind of more dispensable, I guess. Like it's just
Totally.
it's like a different culture of set and how we do things. So speaking of that, like you seem to have worked so internationally. One, I want to talk to you a little bit about travel, because you've got to see the world through the work that you've done. Some of the places maybe that you've really enjoyed, but also some of the teams that you've enjoyed working with, because we just kind of explored like the difference between the work ethic and the style. And sometimes that's interesting, and sometimes it can be a little disastrous.
Uh, yeah. There's a lot of generally most places you go to, they're accepting, and of course it's usually the coordinators there that are a little more like, hey, like I'm the coordinator, but they brought me in. I'm not here to take your job, but they've hired me, so you have to understand that. And so sometimes you get a lot of resistance.
Okay.
The teams are really let's say hungry. They have basically like 5 stunt coordinators in town here, and each stunt coordinator has a team. So those people will only work with those coordinators.
Okay.
So what happened if this coordinator decides to leave the show, the whole team walks.
Wow.
Regardless.
Okay.
Right. So those are kind of politics you have to play with certain things, So you really have to make sure you have the right coordinator on board. But like I say, South Africa, I was over there, and Piranha Stunts was on with me in the beginning, but they got another job, so he left one of the guys with us, and all the locals embraced us because they were learning new things. They were they're doing different things, and they're loving it. Like I get calls all the time from saying how much they love the show, and they thank us for teaching them all these things and doing something completely different. Now they're all making all these videos and these shorts and all these things, and they're like, their skill level has gone like threefold. It's fantastic to see, and it's even more heartwarming for me when they call and say thank you. Not that I did it for them, but I opened the doorway for them.
Yeah, of course. You give them the opportunity
Yeah.
to explore and learn from one another and just create a great environment. So I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so what's one of your, not just for work, but what's one of your favorite countries that you visited that you've gotten through either just vacationing travel or through work? Like where have you been that you've really enjoyed?
I really enjoyed Budapest.
Okay.
For the city is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get out of the politics of the stunt industry here, like the performers themselves, individuals are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
They're also wrapped up in in politics. They don't want to piss off their boss because we leave and they
got to stay here.
Yeah.
They got to stay there.
So South Africa was fantastic.
Yeah.
The people embraced it, and they would come in on days that they weren't working just so they can train with us because they loved it so much,
Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, that training environment sounds awesome. That's why I said, sign me up.
Great. Yeah. Like I said,
what about food? Because I'm really big on food, and you get to go to all these really cool places. Do you get to go to and get local meals, and especially since you get to meet a lot of the locals through the work, do they take you to like the cool spots?
I mean, because I'm here for usually between 6 to 8 months,
Wow.
depending on the show. So, you know, what I love about that, they really immerse you. You get really immersed in the culture, and you start to learn everything. You start doing everything. You start eating their foods and learning everything, like their language, their cultural things they do, their nuances. So, yeah, I mean, Budapest is very similar to how it was in Russia and Ukraine, but because this one is a lot more open, there's no Iron Curtain here. Well, it's gone like what 20 years now. It's still, so they have a lot more foods and varieties that are coming into here and more exposure. Budapest is in the middle of Eastern Europe, so anytime everyone had to travel through to war someone else, they had to travel through Hungary. So they pick up
Yeah,
all
a
those
lot of different meals.
nuances. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, Malaysia was cool. Depends if you really like the curries and the rotis, but Singapore is
Okay.
right next door, so you just it's right there. China was a little more interesting. I mean, growing up in a Chinese family, so, you know, and then
Do you
when you go
speak
from
do you speak Chinese?
no,
No? Okay.
no,
I
my
know.
dad's Chinese. You don't speak Chinese?
I speak Cantonese and Mandarin, but they're like primitive, you know, it's enough to get by. We take tours to China. I take students over there. I don't know if I'm going to continue doing that. It's
Yeah.
been a lot, but I would have to give, you know, speeches in Mandarin, and so it's very primitive. I'm probably like, you know, oh, this little girl, she can sort of, this American girl can kind of speak Chinese. So it's not great because my mom is Jamaican, actually. So she
Oh,
grew up
wow.
and was, yeah, some Chinese Jamaican. And I've embraced that side of my culture as well. But yeah, so I didn't grow up speaking it. I tried to learn it later in life, and I think it
Oh,
shows. But go on. Your father, you said, was
he never taught me Chinese,
okay.
but I learned because I'm half Filipino and Spanish as well. So
Okay.
I learned Filipino fluently.
Okay.
And I had Spanish for a while, but you don't use it, you start to lose it. So that was kind of gone. But no Chinese. But where else today? A lot of countries. Yeah, it's got like 30 countries or something.
Well,
Like
you said
30.
you were in New Zealand, because that's one of my favorite countries.
New Zealand's cool. Yeah, it's really
Everyone's
good. I
so
mean,
nice.
lots of lamb. Lots of lamb.
Yeah, I guess I didn't explore the food that much. I just loved the environment, you know, and the cult and the people there. Everybody was so, it was like a huge island, right? Because my mom's from a
Yeah.
small island, and so it's that island mentality, but it was just like a huge island. It's
Yeah.
like just so everyone's very chill, and their idea of traffic is like 10 minutes of waiting
Yeah, no
in
doubt.
traffic, you know. And you said you grew up in Vancouver, but you were born in Toronto, or where were you born?
Born in Toronto. But I lived in the Philippines for 3 years.
Oh,
And
okay.
then
Oh,
from
that's why you
ages
also
6
speak.
9. Yeah.
Okay. That
I
makes
moved
sense.
back to Toronto, and then I moved to Vancouver in '94. I just picked up and moved.
Okay.
I didn't know anybody. I was at the airport going, what am I gonna do now?
Really? Why did you
Yeah,
want to go to Vancouver? You just liked it when you visited, or
never visited.
no,
I
you just picked a place?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, it was kind of like, at first you think it's kind of stupid, but I kind of made it my own because, you know, I just wasn't really doing much back home, and I hated the allergies that are in Ontario.
Okay. Okay.
I hated the negative 57 winters, and I hated the
Oh,
humidity and the heat in the summertime. So,
so it's not as cold in Vancouver?
oh no.
Okay. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it might get to negative 10 sometimes, but otherwise it's generally between, you know, in the winter times, between 0 to, like, you know, -1, -2 till about, you know, 5 or 6 in the winter times. It fluctuates. This is
That's Celsius. Yeah. Just
Yes.
clarifying for our listeners. Celsius. Yeah.
But the summer times and is generally between 25 to 30. So it's hot, and it's not humid because we have the ocean breeze that comes in, or
Right.
they come down from the mountains. I mean, you can drive to Whistler Mountain 2 hours from the city. You take the gondola up top of the mountain, and you can take your beer and put it in the snow and suntan in the snow.
Oh
And
my
you can
gosh.
drive 2 hours later and suntan the beach in the city.
Right. All right. Well, so now you're selling me on how cool it is.
You see, I told you. And the food there is fantastic.
Oh yes, yes. I didn't. I just haven't spent much time. I visited like once, and it was a long time ago. So I definitely think I need to go and explore now. I mean, that whole thing you just explained sound great.
really nice there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I know you have a lot of work to do and I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but this was so just awesome to talk to you about your work and just kind of get a lot of behind the scenes on the sets and everything. So thank you so much for sharing. And hopefully you'll come back and talk to me again, especially since you're doing more projects and I'll be able to kind of get an update on, what's next and what you're up to. And then, like vicariously live through your travels. And real quick, how was the pandemic for you? How did you fare? Was everything okay? And of course it affected work, I'm sure.
I was doing Snowpiercer and Kung Fu at the time when it shut down. But then it was down for a little while. It actually was because I'm usually go. I think the pandemic, not that it's good, but because of everything that's being in place, I think what it did, it made me slow down. It made me literally slow down and appreciate what was kind of around me. And I think that was pretty good. But then, after, I can't sit still for a week and I'll get bored. I just I got to go do something. So, luckily enough, Vancouver picked up really quick and we have such extensive testings over there and everything like that. So Kung Fu went up right away and we were just doing that right away.
Yeah, so we didn't even get to talk about Snowpiercer and Kung Fu. And so, we definitely have to pick up this conversation, but everybody has asked me and I am so embarrassed. I'm like, I haven't seen it yet because I just don't get to watch enough TV, but everybody asks me, of course, because I'm like the Kung Fu girl. Right. And so everybody's dying to, but what was that like? Cause it's kind of a cool, like, oh my gosh, we're picking up from the 80s and improving upon it.
Well, trying to. I mean, like I said, listen. They said, Brett, the producer, what can you do to make them look like they're on Warrior kind of thing? I said, okay, I need someone with a little bit of martial arts experience, a good work ethic. Give me at least, if you can't give me 8 weeks, give me at least 4 weeks to train with them so I can get them going. They said, okay, great. And they said, okay, you're hired. Okay, great. Next week, okay, we cast this girl, Olivia Liang, who is fantastic, by the way. She has had 0 martial arts experience and you have 5 days. What? But she came up and she said, Brett, I don't care. I want to work. I want to train every single day, 24 hours a day until like this was good. And because she has a dance background.
Oh, dance helps. Dance helps.
Yeah.
Movement.
And movement, but also because dance and Kung Fu is very, very fluid. So she can ask, we just have to give it a snap of things that you need. But she and Vanessa Kai, same thing. Like they just wanted to train. That's all. Like I couldn't get them out sometimes. And Eddie, even Shannon has no action, but she wanted to be training every day with us.
Well, clearly you make training a lot of fun. So
they enjoy it. But I mean, I only did the pilot and then the next 4 episodes. After that, I choreographed it, but then I had nothing part with the shooting. The team I left behind, they continued on everything like that. So if you see a shift, you will probably be able to.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll notice it.
You'll probably see a shift in choreo style or reasons why. But it's not that it's bad. It's all, the series actually does really well. It's doing really good. The actors are phenomenal. The fight scenes are really good, and the producers are over the moon with it. Okay, good. Yeah, and Snowpiercer, 2. Then I didn't continue on 3 because I came out here to Halo. Okay. But Snowpiercer was up anyways in the nomination process for Emmys. Warrior had just passed its second round, so the voting just went through. So hopefully I have a Warrior season 2 has a chance at winning the Emmys this year. Which would be really kind of cool. It
would be very cool. I mean, well, congratulations on all the success. And I know it's a lot of hard work and it definitely doesn't come easy, but clearly you have just an amazing work ethic and an ability to just work so well with so many people. So I'm sure that will continue on for many years to come. I'm so excited to see the projects that you're going to be, helming from, start to finish in terms of directing as well. So I can't wait. And hopefully you'll come back and talk to me.
Just give me a call anytime. You have my email. You have my number. Just call. Hey, Brett, I'm coming to South Africa. I'm like, all right, come on up.
Listeners, you know that I'll be in South Africa whenever the filming starts. So that's where you can find me. I will I will podcast live from South Africa.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening to the Sifu Mimi Chan Show. Please subscribe and rate my podcast on your platform of choice and leave a review. You can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/SifuMimiChan to help keep this podcast going. Follow me and interact on social media at SifuMimiChan on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.